The call came in just past midnight. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, strained and urgent. Fire at Ashwood Nursing Home. Structure fully involved. No known occupants. Firefighter Tom Harris sat bolt upright in his bunk, the name sending a chill through him. Ashwood. It had been abandoned for decades after the last fire gutted the building. There was nothing left but a hollowed-out husk of peeling paint, shattered windows, and whispered rumors. The rest of the crew scrambled into their gear, tension thick in the air. No one said it, but they all thought the same thing. Why is it burning again? By the time they arrived, Ashwood stood against the dark sky like a beacon of fire and smoke. Flames licked at the roof, swallowing the remnants of the once pristine nursing home. The skeletal remains of the building groaned under the pressure, glass shattered, and embers floated like fireflies in the night. Tom and his partner, Chris, jumped off the truck, the heat pressing against their gear. "Just another abandoned building," Chris muttered, though his voice wavered. But then, through the swirling smoke, they saw him. An old man slowly walking out of the burning building. Tom froze, blinking rapidly to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. The man, thin, frail, wearing a worn hospital gown, emerged from the inferno completely unscathed. His face was pale, sunken, but his eyes were sharp. He stared directly at them, and as Tom stepped closer, the man whispered, "I've been waiting for you. For so long." Tom's throat went dry. "Sir, are you hurt? How did you get in there?" The old man tilted his head. "I never left." At the hospital, the paramedics examined him, but nothing made sense. His vitals were strong, his skin cool, and there wasn't a single burn mark on him. Tom sat on the edge of his seat, watching the man through the glass observation window. The old man stared back with an eerie calm, his hands resting lightly on the hospital bed rails. Chris nudged him. "They say the place was empty, man. No power, no water, nothing. How could he have been living there?" Tom shook his head. "I don't know, but something isn't right." Back at the firehouse, Tom couldn't sleep. He found himself in the archives room, digging through old incident reports about Ashwood. The nursing home had originally burned down 50 years ago, in a blaze eerily similar to tonight's fire. There had been rumors of malpractice, neglect, and whispers that some of the residents had never been properly evacuated. But what caught his attention most was an old photo tucked into the report. It showed a group of staff and patients standing outside Ashwood, taken just days before the original fire, and standing right in the middle of them, Albert Grayson. Tom's blood ran cold. The same face, the same eyes, the same man who had walked out of the fire tonight. But the photo was dated 50 years ago, and according to the report, Albert had died in the fire. Tom returned to the hospital the next day, gripping the old photo in his hand. He walked into the old man's room, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. "Albert Grayson," Tom said, his voice low. "That's you, isn't it?" Albert's lips curled into a thin smile. "You finally remember." Tom swallowed hard, feeling the weight of unseen eyes around him. "You should be dead." Albert's expression darkened. "Death is not what you think it is, son." Tom felt a chill settle over him. "What happened at Ashwood?" Albert's eyes gleamed. "Some things are meant to stay buried." Before Tom could press further, the room grew unnaturally cold, and Albert's grip tightened around his wrist with impossible strength. "You have to go back," Albert whispered. "It's not over." That night, Tom tossed and turned in his bunk, haunted by the old man's words. He woke to the acrid smell of smoke and the distant sound of crackling flames. Bolting upright, he realized the fire alarms in the station were screaming. But when he and the others checked, there was no fire, just thick curling smoke that seemed to seep from the cracks in the walls, and the faint imprint of sooty footprints leading from the bay doors back to the bunk room. Chris rubbed his face in frustration. "Jesus, Tom, this whole thing is messing with our heads." Tom wasn't so sure. He glanced at his phone and felt his stomach drop. 3:00 a.m. The same time the fire started at Ashwood, the same time the old man said he had been waiting for them. Tom decided to return to the ruins of Ashwood. Something told him they had left something unfinished. He arrived at the charred remains alone, the night air thick with tension. The building was eerily quiet, but as he stepped through the broken threshold, he heard it. Whispers. The voice was faint, echoing through the scorched walls. "Help us!" Tom's flashlight flickered, revealing the blackened walls covered in peeling wallpaper and eerie scorch marks. He moved deeper, stepping into what used to be a patient room. On the floor lay an old patient record book, miraculously untouched by the flames. He flipped through the pages, his breath catching in his throat when he found Albert's name. Next to it, in spidery handwriting, were the words, "He must not leave." A sudden gust of cold air swept through the room, and Tom spun around, his flashlight shaking. In the doorway stood Albert, his eyes empty, his mouth moving without sound. Tom stumbled back, his heart racing. "You shouldn't have come back," Albert murmured, his voice blending with the crackling of unseen flames. "It's still here." Tom bolted for the exit, his pulse hammering. As he burst through the front doors, he swore he saw shadowy figures flickering in the firelight, watching him with hollow eyes. The following morning, the firehouse received a chilling report. Ashwood Nursing Home had burned down again. This time, there was nothing left. Albert Grayson had vanished without a trace. Tom sat at his desk, staring at the old photograph, his hands trembling. The same figure from the fire still haunted his vision. That night, as he lay in bed, the scent of smoke filled his nostrils once more. He sat up, and in the darkness of his room, he saw the outline of Albert standing in the corner, whispering, "You can't escape it, Tom." Tom left the firehouse a few months later, unable to shake the weight of what he'd seen. But the fires didn't stop. And every now and then, in the dead of night, his phone would ring. It was always at 3 a.m., and the voice on the other end always whispered the same thing. "I've been waiting for you."